Hey guys, I'm Jay Beershank. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. We're here for another edition of book reviews. Today we have another amazing one. And this one I would say is fairly esoteric. When I say that, I'm referring to the use of metaphors within the book. So before I talk about this book, I want to add a prerequisite that I think will help understand the writer's applied philosophy. The book is called The Book of the Five Rings by Musashi. I would recommend to read Musashi by a Japanese writer, E-I-J-I-E-G, Yukashawa, I believe is his name. Musashi is the name of the book. Reading that book before you take a little gander at this one, I think, will be very helpful, because the way that Musashi talks may be a little bit esoteric and hard to understand if you don't understand who he is and the life that he lived and the core concepts that he refers to quite often in this book. Musashi, the other book that I'm referring as a prerequisite, is one of my favorite books of all time, so just reading it is good to do anyways. And if you want to check out that book, I have a review of it on my YouTube channel. Go take a gander. Anyway, that book is actually what brought me to this book. A Book of Five Rings by Musashi. Musashi is the main character of the book Musashi. Musashi is a novel based on this man's life. And Miyamoto wrote this book, A Book of the Five Rings, I think around his late 50s. He finished this book, I think, maybe only a week or two before he died. He was a traveling samurai in Japan in the turn of the 15th to 16th century. So I think he was born 1580s and then he died, I believe, around 1640s. Don't quote me on that, but I believe so. Either way, so Musashi dedicated his life to what I like to call applied spirituality and applied philosophy. I think the reason I was so attracted to Musashi and to this book and to the book Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, which I will review at some point on this channel, these men, they took an understanding of philosophy and spirituality, and instead of turning it into something lofty and metaphysical, they turned it into something fundamental, foundational, and applied into their lives. It was not doing or talking, it was just simply a state of being. And Musashi embodies that, and you can see it reflected through his writing so beautifully and so clearly. Yeah. Definitely recommend the book Musashi. Definitely take a look at that. If you can get anything from this book review, get to read the other book Musashi, because then I guarantee you by reading that book you'll be intrigued to read this book. But so this book, The Book of the Five Rings, was basically Musashi's had some camera troubles there. It died on me and it wouldn't start back up, but got home from work now and it seems to be working. So like I was saying, this book, A Book of the Five Rings, is basically Musashi's outline of his whole philosophy around swordsmanship and how it has to do with your life, your mindset, your technique, your discipline. Because like I said, he was a samurai. He was a very prestigious one. He went like 60 battles without losing, and I think around 30, 35 he decided to start a dojo, or I don't know if he started necessarily a dojo, but he started his own way of swordsmanship. And he started to teach, he started to have students, and he wrote this book as basically the, a book of the five rings. It was kind of like his 5 core principles. It's like earth, water, wind, fire, and the void. And he goes through and he describes those elements as different elements of your soul and of being able to master swordsmanship. And like I had said before, it's so beautiful because the way he talks about it, like there's a lot of talk about this book. People say Japanese businessmen read this book to become more disciplined, serious, advantageous businessmen. And you might at first have a hard time understanding how these sword techniques can apply to business. But when you think about all the words as just metaphors for something much more meta, if you will, like a battle is just any situation where there is a power struggle going on between, well, really between your opponent and their own soul. Because really Musashi's ideology is that you should be able to alleviate any stress or chaos from your soul, so you're under complete control at all times, and you'll be able to manipulate the chaos within other people's souls to be able to master over them. And it's a really profound idea, but that's Musashi's whole basis for winning, is that basically the only way that you can ever be sure that you're going to win is if you master strategy. And mastering strategy, a huge part of strategy, is basically having your soul be void. And what that means is not that you're in chaos or confused, but you're in pure nothingness. And nothingness is not like this place of ignorance, it's this place of willful allowance of emptiness. So you're almost like floating in the middle. Like, just like, honestly, think of this picture. I just thought of this, but like, think of the universe, and then think of nothing in the universe. You're just thinking of just basically like a black abyss. And then think about yourself like floating in the middle like a Chinese Zen master or something. That's kind of what I captured from what he tries to say the void is. And the point is that most people's souls will not be in that state where they're just floating in the void, you know, completely content and present and happy to be there. There's stuff going on, you know, there's ideas and there's this and there's that, blah 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 blah, and the master of strategy basically knows how to manipulate that. And it's so profound when you start to think about it, because it gives you kind of like this sense of like the delicacy and the buoyancy that's needed to enjoy your life. But then on the other side, it talks about all the discipline, you know, because he was a disciplined guy. He practiced every day, he trained hard. So it's like, you know, there's this delicacy in the floating in the void, and then there's also this ferocious warrior mindset of training every day. But the way to serenity and peace within the void is through this rigorous training and discipline that you put yourself through. So it's a strange dichotomy, but you get to have the best of both worlds. You get complete, you know, power, masculine, kind of like disciplined power, warrior mentality, skill, but you also get this nice, beautiful appreciation for the stillness and the nothingness that is the reality we live in. So it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. I think Musashi was, from reading this book and from reading his the novel I previously referenced, Musashi, I just think he was such a beautiful man. And yeah, I'd recommend this book, but like I said, I'd recommend reading Musashi first, because you might not have an appreciation for this book until you read that other one. Because after I had found out that the main character, Musashi, had written his own book, I was like, I'm definitely gonna go read it. And of course, when I was reading it, I did have a hard time interpreting some of like how the sword techniques can be translated into other philosophies of life. And, you know, maybe there is something there, but at the same time, maybe there's not. Maybe that's just an antiquated art that we'll never be able to fully comprehend, because we're not using, you know, Japanese long swords. But I still think that it's worth a read, just because, like, there are masterful people that have lived throughout history, and I think Miyamoto Musashi was definitely one of them. And like how I referenced him to Marcus Aurelius, I think that those guys are kind of one and the same. Marcus Aurelius may have been not so much floating in the void like a Chinese Zen master. He may have been more like just like the guy just like walking through a storm of shit that's just constantly hitting him in the face like this, but he's just walking through it strong as fuck, real stoic. But still, what I love about them both is they just have this applied philosophy and this very pragmatic, empowering view of life that's not lofty and spiritual. It's just how to become productive and like the most pragmatic kind of mentality to maintain. Not any kind of like well, I said before it's esoteric, but when I use esoteric now, I mean like metaphysical. Like it's not anything so metaphysical. It's just like train hard. That's Musashi's idea. Train really hard and train every day and discipline yourself. And Marcus Aurelius is kind of like keep your mind clear, make sure your mind is doing its job, which is problem solving, and make sure it's not on any kind of like self-depreciating or comparing or judging. So you bring those two together and it's just like the gates of heaven open up to you right here in the material world, I think. So yeah, that's my review for this one. I'm sorry about the camera switch in the middle. I don't know what happened with my camera, but it's working now. A Book of the Five Rings, Miyamoto Musashi. Recommend reading Musashi before by E.G. Yokosawa. That's a wrong pronunciation of his name, I'm sorry. You can check the other review on my YouTube channel as well. Thanks for listening. Take it easy. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. If not, that's okay too. Take it easy. Peace. Love you.